Welcome again to this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am your host, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. We want to thank you for your support. If you can do us a big favor, like, share, subscribe to this show and podcast that we have. We're well into the getting to the 150 mark of total episodes, 150. So it's even that's
congratulations.
That's true. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so this episode is a continuation of our episode last week with Mr. Dan Flowers. He is the president CEO of the Akron-Canton Regional Food Bank, and we're going to focus on this episode more on we're going to talk about food insecurity. We have hurricanes that are happening, have happened, and just want to get an update and share as much information with you, our listeners, our viewers, and we just again at all times just thank Dan for being so transparent and just having conversations as a human.
Thank you, Justin. And congratulations again on your, what is it, 150th?
150, yeah.
Episode. That's fantastic. You know, I hope everyone can appreciate the tremendous amount of personal energy that you put forward into this work. I want to tell you, I'm grateful for it.
Oh, thank you.
I've been touched by it. I think the trajectory of my life has been in many ways positively and significantly altered through your ministry. The things that I've been able to share publicly for the first time have bolstered my strength and my feelings of safety in the world with the truth about who I am. And that was the connection that we made. So, you know, it takes time to set up these shows. It takes time to do what you do. It can be discouraging. And I want to let you know that I see your work. I thank you for your work. I want to encourage you to remain steadfast until you feel like it's done. I always tell people at the food bank, we will not quit when it's hard. We'll quit when it's done. And we need to be very, very clear about the difference between the two. Yes. I think if we as people, individuals, when you think about something difficult in your life, am I just tired or am I done?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because people substitute done for tired every day.
Yeah. And I know I have.
God, yeah, me too. Me too. But when you really boil it down, don't quit unless you are really done and you know it.
No, it's great advice on so many levels, and that's. Are we talking about food insecurity?
No, but thank you for your work. That's what I was mainly wanting to say.
Yeah,
good job, man.
Oh no, but it makes complete sense, and I very much appreciate that because there are days when I'm like, is this working? Is it helping? And you know, you look at numbers, and you're like, oh, I want to be higher, and there's all that goes in, and then on days like today, we're filming 5 episodes for the last week in October and then November. I feel so energized. Like I'd love having these conversations, to be able to come into a studio like this, to see where we started in the audio studio, and then how things are slowly growing, but they're growing in due time. And I just want to thank you for sharing that, because it's helpful to me, and it's probably very helpful to a lot of people listening or watching.
Yeah, well, I just want to encourage you. I mean, you know, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And I know that people are blessed through your work, myself included.
Oh.
I can speak for me most.
Thank you.
So you want to talk about the food bank?
Yeah, let's talk about the
food bank. A little bit about work?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so, you know, how about we just jump in, a couple quick updates?
Sure.
If that's all
Please
right.
do.
Since I've seen you last. Obviously coming out of the pandemic, very transformational time for our organization, for society, right? You know, I mentioned in last week's episode how we just built this building in Canton. That happened during the pandemic. We took on all kinds of programming that we hadn't done, home delivery of food boxes, direct operation of food pantries. I mean, we're a much different organization coming out of it than when we're going into it. And on the larger, the macro scale, what's happened with food insecurity has been rather interesting. If you think of 2019 as a baseline year, 2020 comes, first year of the pandemic, unleashes unprecedented insecurity from a societal overview, right? The number of people coming to food pantries shoots up in 2020, huge year. The federal government responds with increases in Medicaid, unemployment, SNAP benefits. So the government response that was triggered really took effect in 2021.
Okay.
And the number of people that came to food pantries went down throughout 2021. If I look at the last 6 years, 2021 and 2022 were the two lowest years we've had. Because government programs make a difference. If you're getting an increased SNAP benefit, increased WIC benefits, increased employment benefits, you can go to the store like anybody else and buy food. You're not as pressed. Okay. In March of 2023, those benefits were cut. At the same time, it was in 2023, about 18 months ago, that inflation surged. Sure. Making 2023 a big jump up in the number of people that are coming in. Okay. And in 2024, we've seen the most people consistently every month this year than ever in the history of the food bank.
Incredible.
So that's the story. I think I'm very critical of nonprofit CEOs that in order to raise money everywhere they go, they say it's the worst it's ever been. Right. In 2021, I stated the facts. The numbers were down. Here's what I think is the reason. But I am here today to say that it is the worst it's ever been right now. There's more people coming into food pantries than we've ever seen. And I believe, from everything I can see, inflation is the primary driver. The cost of goods, people are struggling to survive. And with fewer benefits available, people in poverty will go to get the one thing they can, which is food. People report food insecurity and hunger when they come in. But they're all experiencing poverty. Right. And so, I think we're alleviating poverty, freeing up money so people can pay their heating bill, and, buy their kids shoes and those things. So there's a lot going on with food insecurity from that standpoint. The network has rebounded so that the number of charities that we're working with, churches took a real hit. Yeah. So they're coming back together. The supply chain's coming back together, so we're finding more food to meet this surge in demand. So that's kind of what's happening on the numbers from the macro standpoint. And obviously we could talk about disaster relief, but I'll shut up, let you,
No, I think that's helpful. We look at, like you mentioned, where kind of the peaks were from demand being a unprecedented, COVID. Happening, and then with the inflation and both of those events, being different, they're the same in that when the programs that the government has to offer, like you mentioned, the benefits, they're able to go into the grocery store and buy groceries, just like you and I. When those are cut, then they got to do something.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of benefits out there. In order to qualify for SNAP benefits, there's an asset test.
No.
Yeah. Well, for most government programs, there's an asset test. So if you have more than $3,000 in the bank, you can't even get them. Oh. Yeah. So let's say you have a crisis in your life and you're employed, and you've been working like crazy to get a cushion, and you got $7,000 in the bank, which is a dream for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Then you lose your job, and you go down to ask for food stamp or SNAP to help you, and they're like, well, your assets are too high. Well, so spend your cushion down to $3,000 and then come back and see us. Well, come down to the food pantry. I'll give you some groceries right now. You're not making any money. And maybe now you can keep a little bit more of that, so when you start working again, you aren't as close to the wall. So I think there's a lot of confusion about the way government benefits, programs work. And that asset test is, to me, one of the things that there's the most confusion about, or just a lack of knowledge about. But again, these are reasons why people access the charitable sector, because who would want to spend your meager cushion? Right. You know what I mean? Just to get food when you can come down. And I'm happy to do it. So a lot of times people will come in and report hunger. Like, I haven't eaten today. I have absolutely no food at home. Happens all the time. But I am very, very content to be an agency bolstering the stability of people in our community that are struggling. 22% of the people that have been into food pantries this year are first-timers.
Oh.
So I could pull up our system today, and I could find John Doe that visited the First Baptist Church today, and I could tell you what other pantries John Doe has been to. On average this year, 22% of the time, John Doe showed up for the very first time. They've never accessed the system. Wow. So it's a constant churning of people in and out. They come when they need it. And I think we've gotten some pretty good insights as to why they come. People forget about this, though, because they associate the food bank with, like, feeding the hungry. Oh, well, yeah, of course. But they don't see the food bank necessarily as a major driver of stability in neighborhoods and in families and in kids' lives. Because I don't think everyone fully understands the correlation between emergency food distribution, the fight against poverty, and family stability.
Yeah, and to dovetail off that one area that our organization we're starting to do, and I'll just preface this by saying we believe that the laws that are on the books should be followed. When they're not followed, somebody should be accountable and justice should be served. That being said, we talk about correctional facilities and individuals, whatever the crime was. Just looking at somebody as an individual, I was like, all right, you're released, you've been in prison for 20 years. How am I, I don't know where I'm going to get my next meal. I don't know where I'm going to stay. And I'm not like condoning any of their actions and that have happened, but just the reality that those individuals, and I didn't realize it till we got hooked up with a program through Summit County, where every month there's individuals come and they talk about their needs. They're like, I don't have a car. My license is suspended from 20 years ago. What do I do? I don't know where I'm going to get my next meal from. And so the agencies, wherever they can help out, they do that.
Oh, that's cool.
And I didn't know about that until this year. I wish I would have known much sooner. And actually tomorrow's the October version of that. So looking forward, 4 hours, clients every 20 minutes come in, and to just take that into the work that you do, that those individuals that you're not, I think we're all judgmental, I think, no matter how much we try not to be, but you and your organization isn't judgmental. And like you said, John Doe comes in for the first time, well, maybe did something he wasn't supposed to, broke the law, and is hungry.
Yeah, we're a humanitarian agency.
Humanitarian,
we're a humanitarian agency. And I think that I've learned a lot about what it means to be a humanitarian from watching the food bank.
Yeah.
Because it serves so impartially that oftentimes I catch myself rendering a judgment at the same time I'm serving someone. And it's so paradoxical. And it reminds me over and over again how much better the organization is than me. And these lessons that I can learn about how to be in the world and how to see people. As a humanitarian, I have learned through doing humanitarian work that the organization was organized to do. I think it's made me into more of a humanitarian, but I'll tell you, to your point you made earlier, I remember when I was a kid growing up, my dad had a friend from church whose son was sent to prison.
Okay.
And several times, Dad would be like, I want you to come with me. Charlie and I, we're going to visit Tim in prison. And okay, I didn't know. But we would go in there, and Dad and Tim would come in, and we would pray with them. And I don't know, man. I had an aunt that went to prison. Same thing. When I went to college, I was in a praise band, and we would go do church services at the Jackson Penitentiary. So I had all these experiences as a young guy that were really positive experiences with people I knew and loved that were incarcerated. And I didn't know what was happening in me at the time, but there was an imprint towards this humanitarian vision of who I wanted to become being made. And I was starting to learn at an early age that there is redemptive possibilities alive for people. It doesn't make you any less of a victim's advocate.
Exactly.
To recognize that people's lives go on sometimes long after their lowest moment or their biggest screw up. And you got to, meet people there, or at least be hopeful for them to a degree. So yeah, it's interesting as a humanitarian agency, though, when you start to grapple with some of these policy things. Right. And the way that can inform. That's one thing I would encourage everyone is to look at your philanthropy as an illuminating perspective on your aspirations. So I'm involved in volunteerism because that's a representation to me of who I want to be. But I go back inside myself and I think, I don't want to do that today. My back hurts, or I'm too tired, or whatever, and it'll be okay. Now I go and act in alignment with my aspirations, and I get a better sense that I'm the person who I want to be. Right? The tree is known by its fruit, And every time I see the food bank in action, and I can align who I want to be with who I see the organization being, or what I see the organization being, I'm further illuminated as to steps I can take towards my aspirations for my higher self. And this is a pathway. I think a lot of people don't think about it, but it's my job to think about this stuff. I see it every day. So every time we take that step forward, every time you drag yourself in here to do another one of these shows, then you can drive home thinking, I took one step further towards being the person I aspire to be.
So true.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. And I love how you brought it together of not just like we're providing a service. Yes, we are providing a service, but there's all these layers to it, whether it's like the inflation or a pandemic, or somebody loses their job, or somebody's newly released from incarceration, whatever that may be, that seed was planted at an early age. Well, I don't know if you noticed kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, this might be something I'm interested down the road. I think, at least kind of bringing it to me, there are things that now that looking back, I planted those seeds, and they were kind of like in the subconscious. And I wasn't able to access those until I was able to forgive myself and kind of come to grips where I was just mentally in the world as a new husband and a new father and working and trying to figure out what I like to do and wanting to align what I like to do with what I think I'm good at to a certain extent. And at the end of the day, both of those things come back in that service of helping others. So we help one person, that's one less person that has to look for their next meal. They know they can come in. And taking that philosophy has helped. And then when we talk about, oh my gosh, like we're doing 150 episodes, and it's like when you're so in the weeds, sometimes you don't recognize it. It's like, oh, I got to do this. One more thing. And then now, just as we're talking, just coming to the realization, just as a number of like, oh, well, maybe we'll do 200. Maybe we'll do 500. I don't know. And that is just what I'm finding just as we're having this conversation. So hope.
It's a powerful legacy.
It is.
You've got 150 shows worth of proof to your daughter and everyone in your life that will always be in existence that you tried.
Yeah. And I think
what
that's
a legacy.
That's the key. Like the answer is always going to be no if you don't try.
Yeah.
You might try one thing today, might not work. Maybe that's planting a seed for 2 years from now, and then somebody reaches out and you're like, well, why are you reaching out now? And it's like, oh, well, we talked or we saw this, or we heard this show, and it's really just being in that moment where we talked about it in the last episode.
Yeah.
Just being present with what we're doing and just looking at the human connection of helping our fellow human being with the work that we're doing, and realizing, as you mentioned, at that higher level, that you're not just passing out food. You're, you're a humanitarian.
Yes.
And that's much bigger impact. It's not focused on like one product line of an organization. There's multi-layers, and there are macro things that are happening kind of behind the scenes that now with this disaster relief, with these hurricanes that you probably learned from maybe prior disaster relief.
That's an excellent summary for sure. You know, and I want to talk about those disasters real quick. I want to come back real quick to this principle of non-dualism that's alive in what it is that you just, I think, so accurately expounded upon. That present in a politically divisive time that we're in right now is the fact that multiple things can be true on the same continuum. So we can say every person generally feels better about who they are when they're self-sufficient. This is good for themselves and good for society, and not everyone can provide for themselves. They're on the same continuum, you know? Both are true. But people will grab a hold of one end of that continuum or the other and wrestle that issue just completely from that one side of the spectrum. The same thing can be true, you know, within our own selves, where I can say, on the same day, people that do certain crimes should just be tossed aside because it's so heinous. And then later on that day, I could drive to the prison to pray with someone who did that same thing, right? And how can those both be true, right? Well, because there's a lot of complicated issues in life, and we've got to respect the fact that that continuum is very, very broad, and not grab a hold of, I am the guy who thinks people are beyond redemption, or I am the guy that thinks no one should be held accountable.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And not overly judge ourselves by our proclivities to fall on one side or the other, depending on who we're talking to or what we feel. And that we have to be constantly in pursuit of the higher aspirational goal or that humanitarian goal of what is right in the circumstance. So I just wanted to hit on that just briefly. Coming back to disasters, because I want to land this thing while we've got time. I was at the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan in Flint in 2001 when the planes hit the towers. We sent Sarah from our office to there in response to that. From our food bank in Flint, a lot of other food bankers. What happened after that disaster was very informative as to the way all of the other national food bank disaster responses were to occur. Okay. Because what we saw happen is food banks from all over the country, communities, sending resources without coordination into New York, and there was a secondary logistical crisis because they were overwhelmed with unplanned, unneeded, uncoordinated loads. It was a mess. And the mess was really where an outpouring of philanthropy met a lack of planning and coordination. When Katrina came, we were much better. The national office, Feeding America in Chicago, started working with food banks on the ground and saying very clearly to America's food banks, don't just send us food. Okay. We want to find out what you have available to offer us, and we will pick those items and pull them into the disaster area. That has become the norm. Right now, we're in the process of responding to the hurricane, was it Helene, that just came through? And so, you know, I was just looking at loads. I think we've shipped them about 48,000 pounds from our inventory. All products that we had enough of so that we could send some down to the disaster area without impacting our inventory. Okay. And that's what we're, I'm sure, going to be doing tomorrow when this other hurricane strikes. We're filming this, what's today, October 9th? And so there's a big hurricane headed into Florida tomorrow. What is it?
Milton.
Milton. So, you know, that's what's going on right now. So our appeal to the community is, if you visit Akron-Canton-Foodbank.org, if you're willing to make a donation, financial donation, a food drive or whatever, that can help us keep our inventory strong while we elect based on what we have available to shoot products down into the affected areas.
That's just amazing. The evolution of that from 23 years ago of people want to help, food banks want to help individuals, organizations, and how do I send it? Let me just send it to this address. And like, hopefully it gets to the right person to get to the people, and to talk about the logistics. That's huge. Like once it gets there, who's going to do the delivery? Like, there has to be. Where are they going to come back to the same? Is there one big warehouse, or how does that even happen? And so it's nothing happens without, can't share if you can't logistically make something work.
Yeah, and that's been hard because, you know, I've been on the other side of this a lot. When someone calls me in the midst of a passion project, when they're really trying to get a truck sent down to a disaster area, and I tell them I'm not going to put a pallet of water on it because we didn't get a call from the national office, that's a tough conversation, you know? And so I really try to work this message that there is a lot of coordination going on in the food bank response. Or at the very least, if you want to do an independent thing, make sure that the people that are there actually need it. If it's about us, don't do it without us, is our mantra. And so if it's about them, don't do it without them. Don't just start sending anything anywhere. Unless you know that the people that are there actually want and can use it. It's just smart philanthropy.
And I think that ties into what you're talking about, being humanitarian. It reaches outside Northeast Ohio. It reaches across the nation. And I think if there be a natural disaster in California or a different state, a different area, it'd be the same process now.
That's how we work as a network. And we're doing a kind of a little mini version of that every day anyway, because hunger is a disaster for the people experiencing it. So yeah, if I get 2 truckloads of, you know, a product of any kind, and I only can really move one by the expiration date, I'll call Erie, PA, or Pittsburgh and say, what do you got? You know, maybe we can share. You know, and maybe there's something you can send me. And so we're always doing that with our inventory. Here, we just kind of go beyond that. We prioritize certain things. There's funding sometimes available to cover transportation in these disasters. But, you know, I really want the community to know that the Akron-Canton Regional Food Bank is here to respond to the needs of people here locally, but also to be an outlet for your philanthropy. If you want to volunteer, if you want to come down with your kids, we need your help. We'd love to be there and partner with you in that way. And that we're also a outlet for local philanthropy in national disasters. So if you're concerned about what's happening in Florida or North Carolina, if you make a financial contribution to us, you are helping us replenish our inventory for the loads we just sent down there. So all of that kind of plays in our disaster response.
Yeah, and I think another way to look at it is if not just Walmart, but retail locations, once a product is purchased, the system knows we need to ship another one. And so that's that same process that, okay, we sent 1 truckload, so if a donation comes in, this is what we're going to replenish with. It's the same thought process, not the same exact thing, but a similar process. Great. Well, we're at the end. Did it again, and just thank you so much. I appreciate the friendship of just having somebody to reach out to, and then to be able to talk about helping others, which is what we're both doing.
I love it. Well, so much respect for you, Justin.
Thank you.
I wish you continued good luck, for sure. We'll come back next year.
Absolutely. And thank you again, our listeners, our viewers, for joining us on this episode, the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast with our in-studio guest, Mr. Dan Flowers. Until next time, I am your host, Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, and please be a voice for you or somebody in need.